Hi everybody and welcome to the deep dive. So far in our checklist series we've learnt BWRAF and sorted. So we can check we're good to go with BRAF, we're descending down with sorted, now we need to get back up. You guessed it, there's an acronym for that, and that's STELLA. You use STELLA when you're about to ascend to make sure that you're covering everything and you don't ascend before forgetting to do something. So thumb your buddy, complete your stop, send up your dSMB, and then STELLA. Not the drink, the checklist. Signal. To tell your buddy that you are surfacing and make sure that they can see it. Are you okay to ascend? Remember that underwater in poor visibility or when wearing dark gloves against a black wetsuit, your buddy might not notice a quick flash of a hand signal, and too many divers, when they just see a hand signal, just reply with a yeah, okay, without registering the original signal. So wait for them to reply properly if they're okay to ascend with you. If you think that they've understood, just with like a flash of an okay symbol, look at your dive computer and you start going up. Before long, you're just going to separate from your buddy and they're just going to turn around and not know where you are unless they look up. If you haven't completed your safety stop yet, then give the sign for a safety stop. So that's 3 minutes at 5 meters. It looks a bit like that, or whatever your signal is. And whether to send up an dSMB is kind of like throwing a ball up in the air if you haven't sent one up yet. Good communication is key, so take your time, practice your hand signals, make them nice and clear, and consider the positioning so that your buddy can actually see them against your dark wetsuit. Time to check the time. Take a look at your dive computer or your dive watch. Check to see if you have a ceiling and any stops that you need to do before you start to ascend any further. What depth you're at and your computer's time to surface calculation if your dive computer has that feature. Like with sorted, time is a bit more for the days before dive computers where you just check your bottom time on your wristwatch, but it still works with dive computers to check your computer and check your decompression and your current depth. If your final stop has ended, then you signal to your buddy that your computer is clear and then signal that to your buddy. It crosses over the first point again. It kind of looks like you're dusting off your dive computer to signal I'm out of deco, but it's important to communicate that with your buddy at all times and keep them in the loop so they don't get confused. If you still have time on your stop, then tell your buddy that you still have 2 minutes left so that they're not just hanging around there just not knowing. I mean, I've sat there staring at my buddy just hang there for minutes after my dive computer is cleared, just wondering if I need to intervene. Are they okay? Because they simply won't, they just say what's wrong with their dive computer or what's going on. They just kind of sit there. So do your best to tell your buddy what's going on. Elevate your inflator. Don't elevate yourself just yet. You want to be sure that you can dump any excess buoyancy that you're carrying as you ascend. As you start to go up, air spaces are going to start expanding, which makes you more and more buoyant the shallower you get, and that can lead to a runaway ascent. You do not want this. You want to ascend at a sensible, controllable rate that you can often see on one side of your dive computer's screen. They often have a little graph up one side that tells you how quickly you're ascending, but left arm up, holding your inflator so that you can dump gas if you and when you need to. Left arm up also helps dry suit users because our dump valves are usually on the left hand side, usually on the shoulder, so they dump as well when it's nice and high up. If you do struggle to dump gas, then it could be stuck somewhere inside. So try and put your knees down and give your BCD a little bit of a wiggle so that any air kind of trapped inside a corner of the bladder can just work its way up to the highest point. Most BCDs are designed so that if you're nice and flat in the water, just dipping your right shoulder down and then your left shoulder up a little bit should put the gas near that dump valve. But you also have your kidney dumps as well to try for them. Bottom line is, get ready to dump gas as you ascend so that you can control your buoyancy and slow yourself down. Listen for boat noises. When you're surfacing, you are at your most vulnerable. A boat moving at any speed on the surface won't notice your bubbles on the surface, and in choppy waters, might not even notice your dSMB, especially if it's laid down flat. Some skippers just aren't always paying attention when they're cruising around, so don't rely on the boat to notice you. As you're ascending, listen out for boat noises or your buddy trying to get your attention. If you do hear a boat, then just pause where you are. There's no rush to get to the surface unless there is an emergency. If you do hear something, then just tug on that dSMB line. Make sure that it's nice and taut so that SMB is standing up tall on the surface to reduce chance of boats getting too close. You'll hear something far earlier than you'll see it underwater, so use your ears first to listen out for danger. Take a look around. With noise underwater, it's hard to know which direction things are coming from because it always sounds like it's coming from behind you, but even if you hear a boat motor, you won't be able to know exactly where it is around you, which direction it's going, and if it's even close to you or not. Underwater, it kind of throws out your sense of hearing. So it's important to actually look at the surface around you and actually turn on the spot to keep an eye all around you to make sure that it's safe to surface where you're planning to surface. Look at water movement as well and the immediate area to prepare yourself to ascend. If there's a current pushing in a certain direction, you need to take that into account. If you're being picked up by a rib or a boat, it might be worth just swimming away from the reef just a little bit, if it's safe obviously, just to give the boat a bit more space to come and pick you up. Don't just surface wherever you are for the sheer joy of it. Try and think ahead and try and cut corners where you can to make your life a little bit easier. There's no point in just surfacing up at point A if you then have to surface swim to point B to be picked up when you could have just surfaced diagonally instead. Ascend. If everything is safe, then you can start to make your way up to the surface. If I'm out in open water, I'll continue to turn around just so that I can keep an eye on everything around me. Remember to keep an eye on and keep on top of reeling in your line as well if you're in charge of an SMB. If you ascend too quickly, then the line can just get loose and then just get tangled in things and tie you up. It also means that your SMB will flop down to the surface if you're not keeping it taut, so that makes you less visible. So try and keep it taut and don't continue to ascend unless the line is taut again. There's no rush unless there's an emergency, obviously. Remember to keep hold of your inflator as well with your left hand so that you're ready to dump gas if you need to, but so that you can inflate when you reach the surface, either orally or with the power inflator. Once you've reached the surface, check that your buddy's okay and doesn't need your help, and then work towards exiting the water. So a STELLA at the end of every dive, what do you think? It's a checklist that shouldn't always be done all at once, S.T.E.L.L.A. It's one that's kind of done over time as you complete each steps and when you finish stops. Once you've done a fair few dives, it just kind of becomes second nature really. Just be sure that you're signaling nice and properly, checking your computer, elevating your inflator, looking and listening to your surroundings, and ascending in the right place safely. Thank you for watching everybody, and of course, safe diving.